Di ba't may guhit yung drawing?
The college has produced 95 BCH PED, 101 DH PED, and 189 MH PED graduates who have been appointed to key and strategic positions to contribute to transformative education of health professionals. NTTCHP not only creates impact in Manila, but also in different parts of the world through their international partners, namely Thai Binh Medical University, Hanoi, Vietnam, the University of Health Sciences, Lao People's Democratic Republic, and the University of Health Sciences, Kingdom of Cambodia. From among the mentioned alumni, 16 are DH PED and 12 are MH PED alumni from the Kingdom of Cambodia through a collaboration program with the World Health Organization Western Pacific Regional Office and the French Cooperation.
When teaching and learning in the health sciences first came out in 2010, everybody was quite excited because it was the first textbook from the Philippines in health professions education. It won the most outstanding book awarded by the National Academy of Science and Technology in 2011 by Dr. Badnarenay. It was a thought-provoking book that made the concepts of teaching and learning simple.
The National Teacher Training Center for the Health Sciences was founded in January 30, 1975. During the University of the Philippines Board of Regents' 857th meeting, the center, headed by its founding director, Dr. Corazon P. Gonzalez, was under the Dean of the UP College of Medicine, Dr. Florentino B. Herrera Jr. In its 899th meeting, held on March 30, 1978, the UP Board of Regents changed the name of NTTC to the National Teacher Training Center for the Health Professions, or NTTCHP. UP Manila was then declared by the UP Board of Regents as an autonomous unit in the Health Science Campus in 1979.
NTTCHP was founded during the Decada 70 or the first 10 years of martial law. Despite of all the challenges of the 70s, we're able to develop more or less a robust training program for faculty development that eventually resulted to strengthening of the way we teach health professions education.
NTTCHP was originally a part of the master plan of the World Health Organization, or WHO's network of teacher training centers. In 1971, Dr. Corazon P. Gonzalez, then a full-time faculty member of the UP College of Medicine Department of Physiology, was sent to train to the Regional Teacher Training Center in Sydney, Australia. After her training, the WHO was convinced that there's a future of an NTTC based in the University of the Philippines, Manila. WHO noted the strong and positive response of UP Manila to health professions education. May 28, 1981, the UP Board of Regents approved the offering of the MHP degree program. With this degree program, the NTTC ceased to become a mere service unit and became a degree-granting college of UP Manila.
So in the school year of 2001-2002, the master's degree program in health professions education was developed into a ladderized curriculum. Ladderizing the program allows the students to exit at any point, ending up with a certificate, a diploma, or a master's degree.
Responding to the challenges of the 21st century, and in synchrony with the policy standards, the mandate of the University of the Philippines, and the guidelines for graduate education program of the Commission on Higher Education, the college now offers the Master in Health Professions Education, or MHPED professional track, consisting of 30 units of coursework and the Master of Arts in Health Professions Education, or MAPED, which is the academic track composed of 24 units of coursework plus 6-unit theses, totaling 30 units. The two master's degree programs include new core and elective courses and reconfigured courses from the ladderized program and capstone project or portfolio. Furthermore, the new DRH-PED professional track program is open to all master's degree holders interested to pursue a career track in advanced HPED fields. It is composed of 26 units of coursework and 12 units of dissertation. Finishers of this program are expected to 1. Pursue careers as health professions education scientists who conduct independent research and contribute new knowledge, methodologies, and technologies. 2. Educational leaders and managers who can address the challenges of the 21st century higher education institutions. And 3. Agents of transformative learning.
NTTC HP's curriculum is offered in both residential and off-campus platforms. It was first offered in off-campus mode in Cebu Institute of Medicine from 2004 to 2008, then in the Kingdom of Cambodia from 2012 to 2015. At that time, NTTC HP was recognized as one of two of WHO's Regional Education Development Center in the Health Professions Education in the Western Pacific region. In 2015, NTTC HP's curriculum was again offered as off-campus mode in Cebu Institute of Medicine and Southwestern University, FINMA.
The National Teacher Training Center for the Health Professions is proud to have 7 heads of units from its foundation. They are the ones who greatly shaped the college over the years and give it its deserving prestige and platform. From 1 full-time and 2 part-time faculty members, NTTC-HP now has an impressive lineup of professors. The research extension and professional staff of NTTC-HP is also composed of 2 researchers and 2 library personnel. And there are 6 administrative staff. After 45 years, and true to the original World Health Organization mandate, NTTC-HP, through its alumni from different institutions, paved the way for the creation of 8 medical education units, namely UP College of Medicine, the University of Santo Tomas Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, the University of the East Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center, and Manila Central University in the National Capital Region, De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences Institutes in Luzon, Cebu Institute of Medicine, and the West Visayas State University College of Medicine in the Visayas and Davao Medical School Foundation, College of Medicine in Mindanao. In 2012, the Educational Development Centers for the Health Professions were also founded in the University of Health Sciences, Kingdom of Cambodia, and Lao People's Democratic Republic. The 21st century brings new and emerging roles for the present health professions educators. NTTC-HP responds by offering its revised outcome-based and blended learning postgraduate curriculum in 2020. The college will continue to offer relevant programs, conduct research and extension services that meet the challenges and gaps of the time in the Philippines and in the Western Pacific region. With all these trusts and accomplishments, NTTC-HP hopes to be recognized as a national center for excellence for teacher education and the World Health Organization's collaborating center in health professions education.
Pleasant afternoon, everyone. We would like to remind everyone of some house rules. Kindly mute your videos all throughout the presentation. You can type your questions in the chat box. Please do not record or take pictures of the slide without the permission of the resource person. The question and answer will follow after the presentation. Do not forget to accomplish the client satisfaction survey to have a copy of your certificate. You will receive the link for this later on. Before we begin the monthly seminar proper, I will call Miss Claire Pastor, a university researcher, to give the feedback of the last monthly seminar. Claire?
Claire, wala
Claire?
kang sound. Ayun. One. Claire, wala kang sound.
Hello?
Yan, okay.
Good afternoon once again. In keeping with our trust towards quality, assurance, and accountability, the learnings we got from our ISO audit and the topic of today's seminars, which is the giving feedback, please allow us to share with you the results of our last monthly seminars evaluation by our attendees who answered the client satisfaction survey. And we will be doing this at the beginning of the monthly seminar from now on. Our July 25 seminar was on assessment on clinical skills by our Dean Melfleur Atienza. You have 235 attendees responded the CSS with the following composition. We have 44% were physicians, 20% nurses, 15% physical therapists, 6% dentists, 4% licensed professional teachers, and we also had medical technologists, occupational therapists, midwives, radiologic technicians, respiratory therapists, speech and language pathologists, chemists, criminologists, lawyer, nutritionists, and pharmacists. As to their perceived knowledge of the topic from before and after the seminar, mean rating was 3.43, which is meets expectation to exceed expectations. And after the seminar, the mean was 4.36, which is exceed expectations to outstanding. And we take this as a significant improvement in their perceptions. We follow the university rating in the extension services with 4 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. We are pleased that all the ratings are almost 4 from 3.90, which is the event being well organized, thank you, and to 3.97, which is the speaker was very effective. We also follow the university template when it comes to overall assessment, with this time 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. Looking at the effectiveness, timeliness, and the overall quality, which again were mostly 5, which is outstanding. To the question, what did you like best? These are the responses. So, excellent presentation, comprehensive, informative, relevant, organized discussion. They find it simple, easy, effective visuals. And this one, short and sweet. We also have, they also like the great speaker, excellent lecturer, knowledgeable, eloquent, and participants also appreciated the question and answer portion, which answers given quickly, tips and pieces of advice and their new learnings. They also like the seminar is free with friendly and relaxed atmosphere and found the music nice. Okay, so participants also like the session was based on the evidence and updates. The specific topics that were appreciated were competencies, entrustable professional activities, and the specific assessment tools. And next, as to the question, what did you like least? Okay, 12 answered nothing, not at all, not much. Others had connectivity issues. Some commented on the time. It's either being too short or too long. And others said that it was after lunch. Okay, so the other comments were no email reminder, long introduction, wanted more example and links to references. Okay, for the topics, we asked for topics of interest because we base our future trainings on the most requested topics. Here are the topics with the highest number of participants requesting them. For the test construction, We will have our test construction workshop rerun tomorrow and Thursday. And for today's session is on giving feedback. And these two take care of one of the requests of the participants. So later, kindly fill up the client satisfaction survey too, so that we can include your topics in our list. And finally, we ask additional comments and suggestions. We are thankful for the very have different takes on the comments of our attendees. As in the previous sessions, they have different takes on the time allotment. Some participants want it longer, the others want it shorter. So instead of conducting the seminars every month, which is very taxing to both organizers and attendees, we now hold them every other month, but for a longer period of 3 hours, so that it will be more considerable for our CPD points. As to offering this in hybrid mode, we are probably not yet going to do that, into that for the health and safety reasons. Connectivity issues, please know that whenever we hold our seminars and workshops, some of us stay at home. But today we are all at home because it's supposed to be a suspended office. So others, to make sure that we have a good connectivity in general. We hope that despite this typhoon, today's session will be proceed smoothly. We are not sure how we can help the barangay directly, but perhaps you can make your suggestions more concrete so we can consider them. Okay, for those who join us in July, we value your feedback and thank you for joining us this month again. Back to you, Ate Deng.
Again, good afternoon. I am Beng de Rosario together with Ricky Dantes, Administrative Officer of NTTCHP, will be your MC today. We would like to thank you for attending the fifth monthly seminar for this year. We have 300 participants in the Zoom, and the other are joining in our YouTube live streaming. We have applied for PRC Continuing Professional Development, and towards the end, Ricky, our administrative officer, will discuss the details on how to obtain the credit for this seminar. Our theme for this year is authentic assessment. To discuss the art of giving and receiving feedback, Dr. Emily Dicolen is an associate professor and college secretary of NTTC UP Manila. Dr. Dicolen obtained her MA in Theological Studies at Ateneo de Manila University. And Dr. Dicolen obtained her doctorate in Development Education at University of Santo Tomas. Dr. Dicolen obtained her certificate in Asia Pacific Leadership Program, East West Center, Honolulu, Hawaii, this 2022. And last is Dr. Dicolen is the advisor of the NTTCHP Student Council. Let's all welcome Dr. Emily D. Dicolen.
Good day to all the participants of our monthly seminar. I was tasked to speak about giving feedback, and while I was preparing my presentation, I realized that giving feedback is as crucial as receiving feedback. So in my presentation, I will attempt to discuss both giving and receiving feedback. I know it's hard because despite good intentions, we've hurt others and we've been discouraged by others because we know that words are really powerful. So I added the word art because indeed for me, feedback giving and receiving is an art. There is an artistic or maybe better way of doing both so that we achieve the goal or the goals of giving and receiving feedback and further achieve the intended outcomes of learning and even our relationships. Let me just do a quick review of the various topics that we had in our monthly seminars since January. Please note that these topics are related to each other. In January, Dr. Nemuel S. Fahutagana discussed overview of authentic assessment. This was followed by Dr. Erlyn Sana's presentation on the Health System Science Framework Assessment in Health Professions Education. And in May of 2022, Dr. Maria Elizabeth M. Grajeda discussed constructing rubrics. And last July, the assessment of clinical skills were shared to us by our Dean, Dr. Melflor A. Atienza. And today, I'm going to discuss about the art of giving and receiving feedback. At the end of the session, you, the participants, hopefully shall be able to first explain giving feedback as an important form of assessing the teaching learning process and in improving relationships among health professions educators, to be able to demonstrate basic skills in giving and receiving feedback, and be able to apply selected feedback models in real-life experiences in the classroom, in the hospitals or clinics, and in the health professions education organizations. Do you agree with Ken Blanchard with what he said that feedback is the breakfast of champions? He believed that it is the most cost-effective strategy in improving performance, be it in the classroom or even in our own organizations. Since breakfast is the most important meal of the day, we should also give feedback importance so that as health professions educators, we can assist our students, our interns, our trainees or learners in general to achieve optimum performance. To provide a brief historical overview, we will start from the early 20th century and consider Thorndike's law of effect, which states that behaviors that lead to satisfying outcomes are likely to be repeated, whereas behaviors that lead to undesired outcomes are less likely to recur. Skinner and behaviorism, with positive and negative reinforcements and punishments, can also be considered as precursors to what the field currently views as instructional feedback. Further, the value of formative assessment by Bloom, in which he described the benefits of offering students regular feedback on their learning through classroom formative assessments. Bloom described specific strategies teachers could use to implement formative assessments as part of regular classroom instruction, both to improve student learning, to reduce gaps in the achievement of different subgroups of students, and to help teachers to adjust their instruction. Given that short historical overview, allow me now to discuss the meaning of feedback in the context of communication in general. Feedback refers to the response or reaction of receiver to the sender's message. Feedback is the essence of communication and is the final step of communication process. Without feedback from the receiver, communication process remains incomplete. This feedback may be an oral or written message, or action, or simply silence. Transmitting or sending message is half of the communication process. When messages reach the receiver, he decodes the message and sends his response to the sender to complete the communication process. Feedback enables the sender to evaluate the effectiveness of his message. If the receiver does not understand what the sender wants to convey, then the sender refines or repeats the message. Furthermore, in the definition of Miser, Feedback points to four important goals. First, to describe students' performance. Second, a process of helping students address their performance. Third, identify areas for improvement. And fourth, tips for improvement or performing better. Jackson offers similar definition of feedback in the context of assessment. He mentions the following as important elements of the feedback process as a form of assessment. These are: first, where the learner is vis-a-vis expected learning outcomes. Second, where the learner needs to get there, or what the learner needs to get there rather. Third, what learning opportunities are needed to ensure growth. And third, how to help learners so that they get better at learning. As explained in the earlier slide, feedback is not a one-way process. It is a mutual engagement between the giver and the receiver of the feedback. This is an engagement between the teacher and the learner, among learners, within the learner himself or herself, and between a learner and a teacher. In the health professions, your patients and anyone working with you as a member of the multidisciplinary team can give you feedback. Feedback in these cases is meant to be given reciprocally. That is, you will also need to give feedback to your peers. Educational or clinical supervisors are considered the major source of feedback. They act as mentors who monitor the clinical and educational progress of the learners. Trainees' feedback is essential to monitor and improve the quality of specialty training programs, and learning opportunities. Peers and colleagues' feedback as a multidisciplinary or interprofessional team are expected to be open and supportive to further improve the teaching and learning environment. Patients' feedback is also significant because they are the end users or receivers of the service that health professionals offer them, and they are the best source of assessment as to the functionality and quality of the service health professionals give them. As we all know, there are positive or constructive and negative feedback or code criticisms. Obviously, positive feedback is directed towards the strengths of the learners, while negative feedback are directed towards the weaknesses of the learners. The former leading to optimum performance, while the latter may lead to frustration and disappointment and demoralization. Aside from being positive and negative, feedback can also be given in various methods. It can be briefly given on a daily basis, formally during a specific time, and during major points in a clinical rotation for purposes of improvement before the end of the rotation. Feedback, depending on how it is given, may lead to the success or failure of the learners. Kramer and Kowach in their article explain the effect of feedback according to the social cognitive theory. The success of feedback leads to the increase of self-efficacy and performance, while the failure of feedback leads to the decrease of self-efficacy and performance. Lefroy and colleagues came up with 32 guidelines on the do's, don'ts, and don't knows of feedback in clinical education. As a summary, they came up with this diagram. Trainees are looking for information about their performance and motivation to be or aim to be exemplary clinicians. The feedback process is incomplete if it does not result in the generation of strategies for improvement, either recommendations or self-generated as a result of feedback. And the best feedback process loops back into a subsequent assessment with feedback about whether this has resulted in improved clinical performance. These processes and outcomes will flourish in the supportive learning culture of systematic dialogic feedback. The student feedback interaction model shows that the context must be taken into consideration in giving feedback. These are the sources of feedback, current performance, and learning outcomes. The model emphasizes the three types of student processing: cognitive, affective, and behavioral. The model shows that message, student characteristics, and cognitive, affective, and behavioral responses contribute to an action that may alter student performance and learning. The model emphasized three questions important for student receptivity of feedback. Do I understand feedback? How do I feel about feedback? What am I going to do about feedback? Importantly, the authors suggest that all feedback that comes from any external source will have to be internalized and converted into self or inner feedback. The efficacy of this internal feedback would vary depending on a variety of factors. The Medical Education Unit of the National Academy of Medical Sciences has identified the principles which should be followed while giving constructive feedback. These are called the ABCDEFGIS, and these are the following: amount of information, benefit to the trainees, change behavior, descriptive language, environment, focused, group check, interpretation check, and sharing information. The following principles will be discussed further in our succeeding slides. Lara and her colleagues, in their article, Effective Feedback in the Education of Health Professionals, enumerated the characteristics of effective feedback and some suggested application in health professions education. First, creating an accepting environment by being non-judgmental and explaining to students that feedback is part of learning. Second, focusing on behaviors that can be changed or improved and on observations. And third, feedback must be focused on learning goals and performance on tasks. Fourth, feedback should be made on the basis of competencies required. And fifth, ideally, feedback must be given immediately after clinical interactions or after student activity. But in more serious cases, feedback may be delayed. We'll be discussing this a little later. Then number 6, consider the readiness and absorption capacity of the person receiving the feedback or the student. Too much feedback may be overwhelming and defeats the purpose of the feedback. Kaya dapat agad-agad ibinibigay yung feedback para hindi naiipon. Dahil kapag naipon, baka hindi rin kayang i-digest ng learner or ng estudyante. And number 7, allow the student to learn from the experience and let him or her reflect on them. Just provide some guide questions for reflection. This will create a more encouraging and motivating environment. And lastly, and as earlier mentioned, the teacher is also a receiver of feedback. So, you may solicit feedback from your learners. This is for you, the giver of feedback, to further improve in the art of giving and receiving feedback. As Haiti says, feedback is one of the most powerful influences on learning and achievement, if you get it right. Haiti defines 4 levels of feedback. Each of these levels can be effective at certain learning moments, but also, remember, detrimental at the wrong time. The 4 levels are not hierarchical. The task level is the most common type of feedback given. It tells how well the learner has performed a specific task. Task feedback can be effective when distinguishing correct from incorrect answers, or in acquiring more or different information, in building more surface knowledge, and addressing interpretations such as what must be corrected for a specific project. Some sample prompts under task level can be seen on the screen. Process level feedback is specific to the processes used for tasks, such as how information is obtained and how the task is connected to relating tasks. It challenges the student to form a deeper understanding of the learning and encourages him to construct meaning on his own. It provides information about connections between ideas, strategies for identifying errors, and cues about how to fix up strategies. The power of feedback at this level is that it promotes error detection, which when a student reflects on or on his own work, no, he needs it when he reflects on his own work. Some delay in providing this type of feedback is useful. You may refer to the sample prompts on the screen. Self-regulation level addresses the way that the learner examines and adjusts his actions toward his learning goal. Much like the process level, it encourages the learner to self-assess. But to a more critical degree, no, it also prompts him to engage with the feedback, requiring commitment, control, and confidence. A learner that is not confident in his own abilities or is not as effective a learner, someone who is not willing to invest the time or effort seeking feedback, not willing to seek further information or help, or not being able to review work, definitely will not benefit from this type of feedback. So again, some sample prompts are again given on the screen. The last is self-level of feedback. This focuses more on the person than on the work and is the least effective. It typically builds a student up, but gives them little information for improvement. Comments from the teacher, no, such as great work, nice job, you did a good job, or MC is a good student, no, may actually be counterproductive and interfere with the student's ability to self-assess. We should refrain from using this level of feedback unless it is linked to effort, self-regulation, or engagement to comfort and support a struggling student. Haiti and Timperley's feedback model emphasizes that the purpose of feedback is to reduce discrepancy between current performance and the desired goal. The discrepancy can be reduced by both the teacher and the learner. The teacher can reduce the discrepancy by providing appropriate challenges and learning activities. On the other hand, the student can reduce the discrepancy by increasing effort in using more effective strategies of learning. These measures in bringing the discrepancies must lead to answering the questions, where am I going, or feed up? How am I going, or feedback? And where to next, which is the feed forward. Limitless literature discuss the barriers to effective feedback, and I'm sure all of us can all relate to this. Examples of barriers are the absence of feedback system, or the reputation of the feedback giver. Baka kilala siya as nang-terrorize, no? Or the personality of the teacher. Talagang ganun siya, no? Poker face siya, no? Or the intention of giving the feedback. Again, baka naman gusto lang i-down yung learner or yung colleague, no? Or inadequate skills of teachers, especially health professions educators, are not given formal training as to how to give and receive feedback. Or the nature of the relationship. It can be a barrier because it's like the teacher-student relationship, or the dean and the co-worker. You know, that level of relationship sometimes can be a barrier, no, towards giving and receiving feedback. And sometimes even the culture or physical conditions. Let's say, for example, when you are, giving or receiving the feedback in a classroom, no, or in an office, or there's noise, no, there are a lot of distractions. These are barriers to effective feedback. Or students' fear of insults. Baka naman may trauma yung estudyante na napahiya na siya noon sa harapan ng kanyang mga kaklase. Openness to give and receive the feedback. Language is also a barrier. The psycho-emotional conditions. Baka maraming iniisip, maraming problema, maraming bagahe or baggages na dinadala, no? Or the personality of the student. And the fear of damaging relationships. Ay, wag na lang kasi hindi ko na lang sasabihin kasi masasaktan ko siya or whatever. So, these are all barriers to effective feedback. May naalala pa ako. No, naririnig ko to sa mga estudyante na kasi natakot na siya kasi yung consultant ganito siya magsabi ng feedback, no? So, all of these can be barriers to effective feedback in medical education. And because we all encounter some, if not all, barriers to effective feedback, and because most health professions educators are not trained to give feedback, let me share with you some tips on how to give effective feedback. Some of these I read and painfully applied. Many are my own learnings from my previous encounters with people from all walks of life. And it worked for me, so I'm sharing them to you, hoping that these may help you as well. And by the way, these are generic tips or guidelines in giving feedback. These are applicable to teacher-student relationship, between or among peers, among students, student to teacher, husband to wife, or vice versa, parent to a child, and so forth and so on. First is check or purify your motives or intentions. Minsan kasi, akala natin maganda yung intention natin, pero at the back of our minds pala, meron tayong hidden agenda. So, you have to check or purify your motives or your intentions. Number 2, be timely. No? Ideally, pagkatapos na nangyari ang isang learning or isang incident, we immediately give the feedback. But, you also have to consider readiness of both you as the giver of the feedback and the receiver of the feedback. Baka kasi galit na galit ka pa, no? O baka naman yung bata ay takot na takot pa or yung learner ay takot na takot pa, no? So, kailangan handa kayong dalawang magbigay at tumanggap ng feedback. Then, choose a neutral ground or a conducive place and avoid physical barriers. For example, no? Ikaw administrator, gusto mong kausapin yung isang faculty member. Baka naman mas maganda kung neutral ground. Baka pwedeng sa faculty room o kaya sa coffee shop. Huwag sa office mo as the administrator kasi baka mamaya maging barrier siya ng effective feedback. Avoid the noise. Huwag kayo dun sa canteen. Masyadong maingay. Na pumunta kayo sa isang lugar na tahimik para nagkakarinigan kayong dalawa. Then allocate ample time convenient to both. Hindi yung nagmamadali. Kasi sige na, sabihin mo na kasi pumunta pa ako sa susunod na ospital. No? Wag yun. No? You have to talagang find time to give and receive feedback. Focus on the action, not on the person. Diba? Familiar kayo dun sa sinasabi na love the person but hate the scene. Hindi mo sasabihin na, alam mo, galit na galit ako sa'yo. Hindi ka galit sa kanya, galit ka dun sa kanyang ginawa. No? Or nafu-frustrate ka dun sa kanyang ginawa. So, focus on the action and not on the person. Mention how you felt about what happened. Di ba sabi, communicate your feelings. No? Alam mo, nung nangyari ito, sabi mo sa estudyante, nalungkot ako. Masyado akong affected kasi akala ko naintindihan mo na hindi pa pala. No? So, communicate your feelings. Balance the content. Sabi nga natin, isa-isa lang, mahina ang kalaban. Huwag yung isang buga lang, no? Unti-untiin mo naman, kaya nga, di ba, ideally, sabihin mo na agad, huwag mo nang ipunin ng ipunin. Kasi pag yan ay naipon at ikaw ay sumabog, you will defeat the purpose of giving the feedback. So, hindi kayang i-absorb lahat yan. No? So, isa-isa lang kasi mahina ang kalaban. Then, be specific. Allow the person to recall the incident before proceeding. Ito, nakakatulong ito. Kunyari, meron kang gustong sabihin sa estudyante or dun sa coworker mo, allow the person to recall. Kunyari, natatandaan mo ba isang araw may tinanong ako sa'yo, tapos hindi mo ako pinansin? Kailan yun? No, allow the person to recall. Bakit? Because if the person says, hindi ko maalala, there's no point going on with the feedback. Kasi hindi lang siya makikinig, sarado na siya. Kasi hindi nga niya naaalala, there's no point, proceeding with the feedback. Okay, next. Remember, there should be facts or data, no mere hearsays. Hindi yung pwedeng narinig ko kay ganito, sabi ni ganyan, no? You cannot act on mere hearsays. Kailangan meron kang data. Kailangan it's either your personal experience or you have something in writing. No? Hindi mo pwedeng kausapin yung isang faculty member na ganito daw yung sinabi mo sa kanila, ganito yung narinig ko sa mga estudyante. No? You should have the data with you. Even with our students, kailangan nakita mo, naobserbahan mo sa clinic, o kaya sa laboratory, o kaya sa classroom, then doon ka magsimula. Okay? Kailangan meron kang data. Be realistic. Focus on what can be changed. Behaviors can be changed. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na, alam mo, galit ako sa'yo kung pagmumukha mo. Hindi na niya pwedeng palitan yung pagmumukha niya. Ganun na talaga. No? So, focus on what can be changed. On behaviors, on performance. Okay? Then, own the feedback. Don't bring a mob with you. Use I, not we. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na, alam mo, sabi namin, pinag-usapan namin. No, it's a no. Kailangan I. Alam mo, ganito yung experience ko sa'yo. Alam mo, sabi mo sa estudyante, alam mo, ito yung naobserbahan ko. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na, alam mo, ito yung naobserbahan ng ibang teacher mo sa'yo. No. Own the feedback. Don't bring a mob with you. Again, use I, not we. Next, be timely, but again, as I said, consider readiness. Then offer continuing support. Pag nasabi mo na, pero here I am, I'm willing to journey with you, I'm willing to mentor you, you offer some help or support. Kasi baka siya mismo yung learner or yung taong kausap mo, baka hindi siya capable of coping with the feedback that you are giving. So, kailangan niya ng katulong, kailangan niya ng kasama. Then, end with a resolution. So, next time, what can we do so that hindi na maulit ito? So, sasabihin nung binibigyan mo ng feedback, Doc, siguro sa susunod, kapag hindi ko naintindihan, I will ask some clarifications. Fine, no? So, end with a resolution. And, you can end your conversation with some gesture. Sa akin nakakatulong to because I'm a touch person, no? It's either I end the conversation with a hug, no? O kaya pat on the back. It really helps, no? And then meron akong number 16, no? Joke lang to pero totoo, no? Pwede niyong hawakan yung kamay. Bakit daw kailangan hawakan ng kamay? Well, aside from, conveying some, gesture of support, para daw hindi kanya masaktan. It's just a joke, but it's true. No? Okay. So these are just some tips, no, in giving feedback effectively. Now, if you have perfected the art of giving feedback naturally, you must also learn the art of receiving feedback to complete the whole cycle of communication. Again, these are generic tips or guidelines. They work for me and I hope mag-work din sa inyo. Kaya sinishare ko sa inyo. First, listen to what the person is saying, not on what you assume he is saying or he will say. Allow the person to speak and do not interrupt. Hindi yung habang nagbibigay ng feedback yung teacher ay yung estudyante nag-iisip na kung anong isasagot. Ano kayang pangontra ko sa sinasabi niya sa kanya? O kaya yung biases natin, kaya naman niya nagsasabi ng ganyan kasi ganyan. So, barrier na agad yon, no, to be able to receive the feedback. No? Number 2, be aware of your responses. Be aware of your body language. Hindi yung kasasabi pa lang, bigla kang tumaas ang kilay, no? Tumaas na yung boses mo. no? Avoid barriers and be attentive. Then, try to remove your biases about the giver of the feedback. Try to understand where the person is coming from, no? Ano ba ang background ng taong tong nagsasabi sa akin ng feedback na ito? And as much as possible, remove all those biases. Next, be open and receptive to new ideas, no? He might be seeing something you don't see. May mga bagay-bagay kasi na akala natin, okay tayo, alam natin, pero hindi mo nakikita, pero nakikita ng iba. Okay? Understand the message, clarify, repeat some key points. Sabi ko kanina, don't interrupt. Ngayon, kapag medyo patapos na siya sa pagsabi ng feedback, then you might ask or you might ask for clarifications. Do you mean it's like this? Dapat ba ganito? Anong ibig mong sabihin? No? So ask for clarifications. No? And then, reflect and decide what to do. You may accept, this choice mo yan, no? You may accept or you may not. The choice is yours. Now, if you accept it, no, tanggap mo, taus-pusong tinatanggap mo, then follow up. Set another meeting if needed, no? Pwede ba tayong magkita ulit? Pwede ba tayong mag-usap ulit? Then be appreciative. Consider it as a learning experience. Pagkatapos yung mag-usap, magpasalamat ka because it's a learning opportunity. It's it's an opportunity for you to grow. Then, of course, be sincerely grateful for the opportunity. Okay? Again, these are just some tips for you to be able to receive feedback effectively. Now, feedback, most especially because everything now is digital. Everything is online. No? Feedback is also given in writing. All the guidelines of giving and receiving feedback apply even in giving written feedback. The same goes. No? The same application. However, isang babala. Sabi ko babala. Because sometimes the way we write our feedback, the emojis and emoticons we use, the font color and the size can also communicate reactions and emotions. And it may increase or decrease performance. It can motivate or demotivate. It can make or break the life of the students or the people to whom we are giving our feedback to. Have you used these sentences? Naririnig mo ba ang sarili mo? O naririnig mo bang sinasabi mo? Naririnig mo bang isinusulat mo? Have you ever tried asking yourself, if I were the receiver of this written feedback, how would I feel? When we receive, for example, a message in all caps, how do we feel? Or a note with a lot of exclamation points or question marks, or angry face, or, sad face. How do we feel? Yeah? So we have to consider all of these things in giving and receiving effective feedback, be it verbal or be it written. Now, we come to the discussion of the different feedback models. A frequently used method is the feedback sandwich or the complement sandwich model, in which the top slice of bread is a positive comment. Now, it's about what the learner has done well. The middle of the sandwich is an area for improvement, like in what areas the learner needs to improve. And the bottom slice of the bread is another positive comment to end the session on an upbeat, happy, and positive note. This method encourages trust and lessens the tension between the giver and the receiver of the feedback. This can be applicable in everyday clinical practice. However, if you use this method continuously or repeatedly, or you just use this method, it might lose its effectiveness and lacking sincerity. The person receiving our feedback will only wait for the but or however in between, no? Or in the middle of our sentences. In this case, make sure to give positive feedback on its own when the opportunity arises. Yung para bang pag sinabi mo sa estudyante mo, you know what, you really did a good job, you had a good presentation. Ang inaabangan ng estudyante, naku, ito na yung however, ito na yung but, ito na yung I suggest, or ito na yung I recommend, no? Yon. So, sometimes kapag lagi naman natin itong ginagamit, nawawala yung sincerity siguro, no? And the efficacy of the comment or the feedback to our learners and even, no, to our peers in our organizations. Now, another model is called the Promoting Excellence and Reflective Learning in Simulation, or we call the PEARLS model. At this point, allow me to use debriefing and feedbacking as interrelated terms. The article Debriefing and Feedback, Two Sides of the Same Coin by Voyer, now published in 2015 in Simulation in Healthcare, the Journal of the Society for Simulation and Healthcare, posits that simulation educators are already in a great position to provide meaningful feedback to learners by virtue of a number of features that should positively influence the exchange of meaningful feedback. She further mentioned that the sociocultural and interpersonal contexts that shape feedback and debriefing interact, not only focusing on the technical aspect of the debriefing, but also on creating the conditions necessary for meaningful debriefing to take place. PEARLS is composed of 4 phases: reaction, description, analysis, and summary. To clearly illustrate, please refer to the PEARLS debriefing script on your screen. You start by setting the scene, providing a short introduction to the whole process. Then after that, you now begin eliciting their reactions by asking how they're feeling about the case or the experience. That after that, you may ask them to describe or summarize the case so that you can check common understanding. You may also ask follow-up questions like what happened next, or what things did you do for the patient. When this is done, comes analysis and discussion. In the analysis part, the teacher can facilitate learner assessment by asking questions like, what aspects of the case you think managed well, or you would want to change and why? Then the teacher can proceed to directive feedback and teaching by providing the relevant knowledge to perform the action correctly. The focused facilitation can take place by offering alternatives, the pros and the cons. Clarifications or questions may also be entertained to ensure common understanding and knowledge. And finally, the application or summary, which can be learner-guided or teacher-guided, or even both. Another model is the Pendleton model developed in 1984. It is more learner-centered, conversation-based, and identifies an action plan or goals. Reflection for action. The facilitator needs to check whether the learner wants and is ready to feedback. Then, the learner gives some background about what is being assessed and states what was done well. This aims to create a safe environment first by highlighting positives, and consequently, this prevents defensiveness. The facilitator then reinforces these positives and the learner suggests what could be improved. This is important as weaknesses are dissected to offer opportunities for reflection. The facilitator advises how this could be improved, and a mutually agreed action plan is formed. The main idea is to use open questions and give the learner the opportunity to think and reflect. What do you think went well? Why do you think, or what do you think could be done differently? What could be further improved? And how can this be achieved? Another feedback model that I really love advocating is the appreciative feedback model. This is similar with the other models. However, what is very unique about this model is its positive and future-focused tone. Its emphasis on how to be more effective and productive rather than placing blame in the past. It decreases defensiveness. It focuses on what to do rather, instead on what to do, and offers hope for a better future. How to give effective or appreciative feedback? First, identify the problem, challenge, or opportunity for improvement. Then reframe the problem as a future opportunity. Then identify what has made success possible in the past. This can be concretely done by utilizing the 4Ds of appreciative feedback model. These are data, depth of feelings, dramatic interpretation, and do. The appreciative feedback model begins with the data or facts, like what is the experience? What happened? Take note of the tips of giving feedback that I mentioned earlier. Focus on the behavior or the action. Then mention how you felt about the experience. Communicate your feelings. How did it affect you emotionally or even psychologically? Remember, feelings are feelings, and nobody can tell you that your feelings are wrong. Then bring that feeling to the level of interpretation. What does the experience or the incident mean to you? What's your reading or what's your reading of the experience? Ano ang naging dating sa'yo? Then end your feedback with a resolution. Agree on what do you want to do after the experience. For example, I already read the journal you submitted about the simulation activity that you had last week. That's the data. I was impressed and I was really happy and proud of you. Congratulations. That's the depth of feelings. This achievement means that you are taking your study seriously and conscientiously. That's the dramatic interpretation. So, would it be okay with you if you will be the team leader in our next simulation session? I think this will be a great learning opportunity for you. That's the do. Okay? Now, one feedback model to help students communicate in a meaningful way and also collaborate better is the RISE model. Reflect, inquire, suggest, elevate. Aligned with Bloom's taxonomy, this model uses prompts to assist students constructive analysis through inquiry and provide suggestions to help elevate each other's work. By prompting, students critically engage with each other on 4 different levels, thus transforming vague responses to meaningful feedback. Sample prompts are written beside each step for your reference. The last feedback model that I would like to share with you is the Gibbs reflective cycle. As earlier mentioned, feedback is also done by a learner or any person with himself or with herself. Gibbs reflective cycle is used for this purpose. The model is composed of 6 steps: description, feelings, evaluation, description, conclusion, and action plan. Analysis, rather. The 4th one is analysis. First is the description of the experience. How can you briefly, objectively, accurately, and concisely describe the experience? Second is feelings and thoughts about the experience. What are your positive and negative feelings about the experience? Third is evaluation of the experience, both good and bad. How well or how bad is your experience? Fourth is analysis to make sense of the situation. Like what factors facilitated or hindered the experience. Fifth is conclusion about what you learned and what you could have done differently. You can ask the question, what alternative approaches could have been done? And the last is action plan. Are there general changes you might want or you might find appropriate? At the end of the feedback and receiving, at the end of feedback, giving and receiving process, what we, health professions educators, really aim at is to develop that feedback-seeking behavior among our learners. Not only, of course, our learners, but even us, all of us, as health professions educators and administrators. Because how can we sincerely and conscientiously give feedback if we ourselves are not open to receiving feedback? Feedback-seeking behavior is the conscious, deliberate effort towards determining the correctness and adequacy of our behavior to be able to attain intended goals. Its key aspects are frequency, timing, the characteristics of the target of feedback, and of course, the topic. Bock et al. In 2013 added the following facts in his article. Intention and characteristics of the feedback provider, nature of the relationship between the feedback seeker and provider, and motive of the learners as well as the receivers. So, we have already discussed the importance of feedback giving and receiving in assessing the teaching learning process, as well as in improving our relationships as health professions educators. The crucial skills of a giver and receiver of feedback, the relevant feedback models that can be utilized in various feedback contexts, teacher-student, among peers, student-teacher, and self-feedback. At this point, I would like to thank you for listening. I hope that after this lecture, we all try our very best as health professions educators to become better at giving and receiving feedback. I would like to leave you with the following quote to ponder upon. Give feedback with charity. Receive feedback with humility. Giving feedback won't make you great as a person, and receiving feedback won't make you less of a person. Thank you very much. Yan, so good afternoon, everyone. That's my presentation. So, we now proceed to our Q&A ba muna, Clara? Or workshop kaagad?
Workshop muna.
Workshop muna. Okay, thank you. So, I hope that you learned something from my presentation. And so far, we've been receiving questions already. But before we entertain the questions, let's go to our workshop. And these are the mechanics. So, all of the Zoom participants or workshop participants on Zoom will be placed in the breakout rooms. So we are divided into like 7 groups, I think. No? And then each group will be given a concrete situation or scenario to analyze. Then among the feedback models discussed, I hope na-retain no, sa isip natin, choose one or a combination of models and apply the feedback model that you have chosen as well as the guidelines in giving and receiving feedback. No? So you're given 20 minutes to discuss and agree as a group. Then in your discussion, please be creative. You can use Google Slides, Google Doc, Jamboard, etc. No? And then in your presentation, we would like you to be creative as well. You can do a role play, a simulation, a song, a poem, or just a presentation. And then each group will be given 5 minutes no, during the plenary for your presentation of your workshop output. Then, for those who are on YouTube, don't worry kasi po makakapag-participate pa rin kayo because you can share or you may share your experience in your real practice when you utilized one of the feedback models discussed or whatever experience that you would like to share no, about feedback. Feel free to type your answers in our comment box or in our chat box, and then during the plenary, we will share your answers to the big group. Okay, so again, I would like to repeat, now you will be divided into smaller groups. There's an assigned facilitator for each group from NTT-CHP. We have 7 groups, and then you're given 20 minutes to do your discussion, no, applying the tips or the guidelines and even the models that I have discussed. Then after 20 minutes, we're coming back to the plenary for the presentation of your workshop outputs. Okay, so thank you very much. So, are there questions? Yes, Mel?
Give us a handout.
Yes. Okay, I will. Sige. I can share the handout here on our. Just a moment. Okay, ganito na lang. I can share the handouts to the facilitators in the Google folder, and then kung pwedeng, yes, kayo na yung mag-share doon sa group. Okay? So siguro, we can already go to our Zoom rooms.
Okay po, I'll open the rooms now.
Yeah, so I would like to request the facilitators to share the handouts later.
To all participants, please accept our invites in the breakout rooms. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. I think we don't have a facilitator in our group.
Okay, thank you so much. Are we all back to the plenary? Ayan. So, these were the guidelines presented no, before we broke up for the workshops. So, every group was given 20 minutes to discuss no, regarding the scenarios assigned to them. Now we have 5 minutes for each group for our presentation. And then for those who are in Zoom, on YouTube, Nina is helping me collate all your sharing or your comments in the comment box of YouTube. So we will read them later on. Okay? So can we now have some volunteers for our presentation? Any volunteer? Please feel free to unmute your microphones and turn on your videos if you are ready to present. Okay? Any group? Yes, Paul, sure. That's my group. Come on, Paul. Okay, please unmute your microphone. Go ahead, Paul. So I would like to request everyone to please listen to the presentation and you can give your feedback or your comments also later. Okay, if you have. Go ahead, Paul.
Anong group?
Okay. This is my group. This is group 4. Let me just read the scenario first, Paul. No, the scenario is this. A group of students came to your office and raised the concerns with one of the new faculty members in the XXX college. The concerns they raised were the following: tardiness, early class dismissal, failure to return test papers on time, failure to give feedback, and vulgar language. As the program coordinator, you plan to have a dialogue with the faculty member. How will you prepare and how do you think the actual meeting will be conducted? Okay, so Paul is representing our group.
All right. So good afternoon po, everyone. So given the case pa, no, we were tasked to talk about how we would prepare prior to the session where we will give feedback to the faculty. So first and foremost, we thought that it would be important to investigate regarding the nature of the complaints of the students. No, some of our group members recognized that during this time, especially, may mga students kasi na na minsan din baka unreasonable yung pinanggagalingan. So and it might be just a fraction of what the actual class feels. So we thought it would be important that we investigate further just to get a better gauge of where the students are coming from. And then one suggestion was to sit in during the class to observe an actual scenario. So probably this is abiding to the principle na you should not base it on hearsays and looking at it objectively. However, yung ang consideration lang dito, baka nga ma-caught off guard yung faculty involved na bakit kailangan mag-sit in, or pwede rin kasing Hawthorne effect na that you're being observed, so baka gagalingan mo during that particular scenario, no? So pero that's just one option to look at kung ano ba objectively yung nangyari agad talaga during the class. Ayan. Tapos other suggestions are maybe we could also look at other records to check for patterns of absences and tardiness of the involved faculty. And then counseling employees. So ito ay parang on the preventive side na parang in general, how do we communicate with our students? How do we prevent miscommunication with our students? Yon. Tapos I'll skip to the next one. Of course, it's important that both parties, both the students. We plan to after talking with each party, so talking with the students privately and talking with the faculty involved privately, we intend to have them openly discuss them. So prior to that, baka dapat they are informed ahead kung kailan at saan mangyayari para din they are mentally prepared for that particular scenario and not put in a less ideal situation na baka hindi sila ganun ka-receptive for what will happen. Ayun. So, with that, we've considered models that we could use. So initially, parang we were thinking about the appreciative feedback model, which may be good for the coworker para hindi siya sobrang antagonized, para mas parang peer-to-peer approach. Pero we've picked the Gibbs reflective cycle model since it looks at a more reflective process, both from the end of the students and the faculty alike, no? So following the steps, ito yung mga prompts that we intend to take. So first is describing of the experience. So ano ba yung experience nila in general, prior and after the conference. So parang one is probably ito yung pwedeng individual individual discussions with them na kamusta ba sila during class, no? So next step would be looking at their feelings and thoughts while attending or conducting the class. Kasi baka mamaya pwedeng yung behavior ng faculty is a response to how the class is during no. So baka mamaya disrespectful pala kasi or baka hindi participative kaya nagiging ganon yung response. So medyo on the extreme end. And then next step would be evaluating the experience. So we would probably ask the students, so ano ba yung good and bad points when you attend the class of Professor XXX? Tapos siguro for the faculty din involved, parang in handling these students, ano yung parang good and bad things about them. And then next step would be analyzing how to make sense of the situation. So probably you could ask, ano yung certain instances or circumstances that you think contributed to this particular reaction or this particular response na that is put in question, no? Yun. Tapos number 5, important is to help them arrive at a conclusion. So parang instead of being an arbiter na after hearing everyone's thoughts, we think so instead of that, we would prefer that the students and the professor themselves parang arrive at a consensus and meet halfway na kung ano ba sa tingin nila yung yung mga naging mishaps and para makarating tayo sa step number 6, no? So parang the action plan would be based on their conclusion on how they made sense of what happened during those experiences, no? And it's also important that we document the whole process so that when this problem arises, meron na tayong record of how it was resolved and what we could pick from this experience, and also to do follow up. So baka kasi after this, we want to ensure na na follow through and na maintain naman na walang nag-arise na subsequent problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. No, I just would like to pick up some points that you have mentioned, especially doon sa choice niyo ng model. As we were discussing earlier in our group, pwede kasing it's a combination. Actually, meron tayong kinuha from other models na nakita ninyo dun sa conclusion part. It can be teacher-guided or it can be student-guided. And you decided that it be student-guided so that they can make sense of their own experience, no? And then, maganda rin yung sa monitoring. No, and I believe that the documentation is also very important because if something happens in the future that's similar, it's either on the part of the student or on the part of the faculty members or faculty member concerned, meron ka ng data, no, meron ka ng hawak na hindi naman evidence, no, pero yan, data or information, no, that you can refer to if something similar happens in the future. Okay? Thank you very much. So I hope that the whole process of going through it was helpful now for our group no in group 4. Okay, thank you. Any volunteer to be the next? Can I see yes, very good, Bernice. Okay, Bernice. Which group are you, Bernice?
Kami po yung breakout room
A. Okay. Kay Melv, kay Dean. Okay. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Do I read out the entire case po ba? Or just the
kasi baka hindi nila alam yung case natin, Bernice.
Sige po. Alright, so for our case, first year medical students were asked to go to the OP ward. So this was their first hands-on encounter with pediatric patients. It was a group of students, 5 to 6 per group, and they were tasked to observe the baby breastfeeding and offer breastfeeding support to the mother. One of the male students, Richard, he greeted the mother and noticed that she was breastfeeding and that the position of the baby was not correct. And then he went through the entire process of guiding the mother. As you can see, there was a sentence here, Richard hurriedly took the baby from the mother's breast and positioned the baby properly. And then once the baby successfully latched, the student then proceeded to explain the importance of breastfeeding, how long a good feeding should last, etc. And then before leaving, he clarified with the mother if she had any questions, and the mother said that she had none. And then they proceeded to leave the session. So now, parang the group was tasked to think about how to structure the session, the feedback session with the group of students. So it's a group consultation, and then you gave them consultation hours. Yeah. So the question is, how will you give your feedback to Richard, and how do you think the group can learn from this experience? Okay. Ms. Melchor, ako na lang po mag-share.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Ma'am Emily, yung sa next slide ko po, I screenshotted the part of your models lang just for a quick.
Sure.
I hope that's okay po.
Yeah, sure.
So for this one, it's a overview of how we brainstormed and came about the model that we chose. So yung sa first part, you see 2 columns, yung upper half. There's the left side and the right side. So yung left side siya yung parang mostly the good points that we want to emphasize also during the feedback, and then the right parts are things that Richard could improve on. So we started to look at that muna, parang more on the content, kasi yun yung medyo mas tangible, I guess. It's easier to structure from there. So I think that one thing that we wanted to build up on rin kasi, or we want to, parang ayaw namin maalis, is yung eagerness ni Richard. So parang meron kasi siyang positive attitude doon sa patient, doon rin sa experience. So assuming ganun rin yung experience or attitude ng mga fellow groupmates niya, so we want to build up on that, and we don't want na parang the feedback would dishearten him in the end. So parang gusto naming ma-uplift yun. And so with that, we considered na one, it's a group feedback. So we must be mindful not to pinpoint or to single out Richard during the conversation, kasi it would be easy kasi he was the first person to approach the mother to go through the entire process. Pero as much as possible, we should avoid that. So ideally, scheduling siguro parang pwedeng before, we can see Richard before the group feedback or after. So kung dun sa one-on-one processing with Richard, we would have a process-focused feedback. Tapos Pendleton's model, hindi namin nalagay. Combination of Pendleton's model sana and Pearls. So we combined both. The group pointed out that yung Pendleton, parang it's a good framework, but yung Pearls, parang meron siyang magandang set of setting the scene and reflective questions that would facilitate self-reflection on the end of the learner, which is something nice to build on kasi nga this is their first hands-on experience. So even though parang medyo some level of proficiency, this is parang attitude-wise, this is something that we can build up on while at the same time building up their knowledge and skills po. So we will use the Pendleton's model, the steps, pero yung content ni Pearls. So for example, setting the scene, that would be step 1 and 2. Yun po. So in the end, ang end up is meron siyang self-reflection process pa rin. And it's not just pinpointing. Kasi sa Pendleton na maganda, meron lang siyang action plan na specific towards the end for the improvement. And then after that, here, if Richard was deemed open to feedback and improvement, a coworker or peer feedback, yung appreciative feedback could be used during the group discussion. It could also be a way to check how Richard handled the one-on-one session where he is at now. Kasi merong point doon for the appreciative feedback, yung parang future insights ng learner po. So, that's the output po for group.
Okay, thank you so much, Group 1. Actually, hindi lang dalaw. It's not only, sa tingin ko, it's not only a combination of 2 models, but even 3. Kasi ginamit niyo yung appreciative feedback, di ba? And I really love when you said that you were, how do you call this? You were giving emphasis to the eagerness attitude of Richard. Pero, maganda siyang i-focus, pero siguro, I don't know if it will come later in the processing or in the deepening na minsan out of eagerness, there are some steps of the process that are missed out. I don't know, no? Like for example, nung hinawakan niya yung baby, naghugas ba muna siya ng kamay o nag-alcohol ba muna siya? 'Di ba? Usually yun yung ano, 'di ba? So, but I love the way you put all the different models together and come up with something new, no? So sana sa totoong buhay natin may apply natin 'yon. So, it's not only a feedback on the level of the teacher and Richard, but also it's a matter of peers, no, giving feedback and learning from the whole process. Okay? Thank you, Group 1. Palakpakan na naman natin yung Group 1. Tsaka yung group namin kanina, hindi natin napalakpakan. Okay. Who's next?
Okay
Yes.
na po ba?
Yeah, sure.
My name is Mark Chester Cabrera.
Okay, good.
Under
You are Group F. Go ahead.
Sorry, my camera is not available. Or rather say I'm not available to be viewed in the camera. So, yeah, actually our group was tasked to present a case presentation. This is a case presentation are commonly used to develop clinical reasoning of occupational therapy students before they proceed to their fieldwork placements. So, a student presented to the class and to a panel of instructors a treatment plan for a case of a 2-year-old child with developmental delays. So, the treatment plan include appropriate strategies on how the sensory processing and motor skills of the child will develop. And it was all well explained. However, it missed to include the role of the parents and the family in therapy, specifically how they will carry over instructions at home and how they will integrate these strategies into the daily routine of the child. So, as one of the panel members, you are to give your feedback to the output of the student with a clear intention to help. Note that this is a public presentation and there are other instructors and students with you. So we are asked how will we give feedback. So actually, nung nag-brainstorm po kami earlier, most of us have the same thought and actually agreed to use the same type of feedback to present. So it's actually the 4 Ds of appreciative feedback. Though we're not going to kumbaga isa-isahin yung 4 Ds po na yon. Pero we just actually go through with the how we will provide feedback with the principle of this one. So actually, most of us or all of us actually agreed that kailangan po kasi naming, as a student po kasi, this is very common, especially during high school or college, wherein students need to present something to their professors to pass their subject, right? So, ayun po. So, ang tingin po kasi namin, it will be best kung appreciative feedback po yun kasi parang it will not somehow discourage the students but somehow they can provide a feedback by means of converting the problem or the opportunity to be kumbaga parang maging opportunity to improve oneself with regards to presenting or providing a presentation. So ayun po. So dun po sa ano po namin, it will be best na to kumbaga sabihan yung student, or let's say mag-feedback to the student by means of saying na kung ano yung magandang points of the presentation. For example,
Sige.
it is
Kunyari ako si, kunyari ikaw si instructor, ako si
Yes po.
estudyante. How will you tell me?
Okay.
Nag-simulate yan. Sige.
pwede din po, mas maganda po actually para
Oh, di ba?
maayos po
Oo,
yung
role
ideas
play
po.
tayo.
So,
Sige.
it is a great presentation, by the way. You were able to provide the strategies that will actually help the child in the early stages of development.
Mhm.
I think what we can improve on is to include other factors that will support the subject of the discussion. So, based on that po, actually I provide a positive feedback, saying that his or her presentation is actually great, but somehow pointing out that there's a need to improve with regards to the presentation without giving the student yung negativity na kailangan po niyang gawin to or ayusin to. Then after po that, by giving some examples, just for example po na how to improve yung presentation ng student. For example po, role play po ulit. So under your presentation, this is including the parents or the guardians, which will be the key factor in the child's development. Then after po nun, providing further examples of bakit si parent or bakit si guardian yung key factor with regards to the having the child's development in the future. So after po niyan, actually it is somehow stating or identifying the success. Kung ano po ba yung just to para po bang fortify yung facts na stated po earlier, which is actually the parents that will be the key factor dun sa development po ng bata. So most of us actually some of us may nagsabi po kasi na parang they have the good intent naman po to provide feedback to the student, but somehow giving feedback for me as an opinion lang po, based din po sa word or how you will deliver it. Kasi minsan gaya po sa means of communication, it is very important. Hindi lang naman po kailangan mabasa lang po yung ipe-present, or let's say mabasa lang po kung ano yung na-point out mo sa student for them to get improved, but also how you will deliver the feedback itself to the student. Kasi your intention might be to help the student improve in a later or in a long process, but on the other hand, the student might take it as a kumbaga parang magkakaroon kumbaga siya na parang fear or parang madedemoralize yung estudyante, wherein in the future baka hindi na siya mag-attempt, or let's say he or she doesn't have the courage to present, or let's say be with or have a conversation with regards to such topic or to such presentation.
Yeah.
So
my
I think
question
yun lang po.
is, so and I have further questions. So,
Sige po.
would you rather give your feedback individually to that particular student, or will you discuss it in the presence of the other students?
Actually, given I'm one of the panel of instructors giving feedback to student, I think it will be best na yung other students will also hear what will I say. Kasi it will set an example as well to the other students if in case they had the same scenario or same situation na kung bakit bakit ako may na-miss na ganito, ba't ganyan. Pero not necessarily that that specific student needs to be perfect na parang walang error dapat, walang ano, pero
For sure.
yes, there's always a room for improvement kahit naman tayo mga professionals na siguro. Hindi tayo may room for error pa rin, may room for improvement. Pero ayun, for me it would be the best.
Yeah, okay. So I agree with you because this is a presentation, 'di ba? Alam naman
Yes
natin
po.
na this is a public presentation. However, if you think there are salient points that you observe na baka mas appropriate to be told to that particular student in private, then perhaps that could be part of the action plan. 'Di ba? Yung
Yes po.
kasi you followed the 4D for this, 'di ba? So
Yes
the
po.
last part, which is the do, what do you want to do? The student might need more time to digest kung ano man yung comment ninyo as a panel of instructors or evaluators, that you might need some time to to spend at least with that particular student, di ba?
Yes
Okay.
po, Prof.
Yes, yes. And then I like the way you explained each part of the 4Ds, no? Siguro lang ang masuggest ko is mas maging clear kung alin yung point na gusto mong sabihin, like what are the
Yes.
facts. The fact is that maganda yung presentation niya, no? Mahusay yung pagkakagawa, galing-galing ng presentation, magaling din siyang magsalita, and these are facts na naobserbahan mo, di ba? And
Yes
then
po.
second is, how do you feel about it? Anong feeling mo dun sa kanyang presentation? Anong feeling din niya sa kanyang presentation? Natuwa ka, no? And then what does it mean that he really prepared well for his presentation, and therefore these are the action plans, diba? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
Is
you,
there
Prof.
anything more that you would like to add?
Actually, that's all.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you, Prof.
Yeah, salamat din. Thank you. Next group, please. I saw...
That was me.
Okay, Louie, go ahead.
All right.
Louie, and then may isa pang nag-raise ng hand. Sige, go ahead, Louie.
Am I allowed to share? Yes.
Yes.
Ayan, wait lang. How do I F5? It's not working. Anyway, if you're able to see naman. So our case is we're group C. Our case is for Carla, a pediatric resident, was asked to present her research proposal to the consultants of the department. So we're in the department. The hospital is a mother-baby friendly hospital that adheres to the milk code. Her proposal is the following: looking at an infant's developmental milestones, a comparative study on exclusively breastfed versus exclusively formula-fed infants. Her methodology is to randomly assign babies born in the hospital to being breastfed or formula-fed and to follow them monthly for 1 year to check on their developmental milestones. So, as consultants, we want to be able to guide Carla in improving her research proposal and to tell her that her proposal needs improvement. Looking back at our discussion, our silent discussion, it appears that we have three, actually, pwede pang four sana kanina, pero essentially there are three designs that we looked at. So to tell her that her proposal needs improvement, the Pearls method kasi lends structure to the overall delivery kasi. So we can follow a step-by-step sequence that will will borrow concepts from other two. Initially, Rice lang yung nakikita namin na intersection, pero listening to Mark's discussion, parang may dream din ay parang may appreciative feedback din, may 4Ds din. So we begin by setting the scene. So nasa department na siguro. Siguro to help set that it's a neutral space, we can say na, although I doubt it's gonna happen that way. We're all equals here. We're colleagues. It's always emphasized, pero somehow it doesn't always feel that way. So we can hope for the best naman. Pero we set the tone, explain the context of the feedback. This exploring reactions component, the Pearls method, pwede kasi siya yung R part ng Rice, pero pwede din siyang yung discovery part ng appreciative feedback. So we check how she feels about her proposal. Dun sa part kasi ng dream, meron pang yung part ng parang look at the strengths that her study wishes to study that her study wishes to explore yung strengths that's available to the design, to her intention, the weaknesses na may ethics of the study that need to be considered, going against the principle of the hospital. We want to ask the motivation for the study, whether it's a valid design. Pero going back kasi, we can describe the facts na we remind about the vision, mission, goals of the hospital. It's supposed to be mother-baby friendly and discuss the implications of their proposal relative to the VMG. So it's not the person we are singling out. It's the proposal, the content, and the goal. So hindi person-person ang approach, more of the symbols used in the context. So emphasize the action parts of the research and hope that she won't take it personally. Syempre, hindi rin may iwasan na. We want to be able to analyze. We want to analyze together since it's a team of consultants. Siguro we we had a mindset kanina na yes, we may be consultants, but we want to go to the level of the resident para mas clear ang dating, para pasok din yung life. At the same time, since consultant ka naman, dahil hindi naman madi-disqualify yun, andun pa din siguro yung credibility as, someone that can give you intelligent, hindi intelligent, evidence-informed decision-making processes. So we analyzed with her what she wrote there, what she was thinking about, what the implications that it has on the subjects, on the population involved in her study. So we want to investigate with her. We also want to hindi naman na yung what she might want. Siguro, pwede na din i-include dyan yung dreaming part ng appreciative feedback kasi we really want to collaborate with her on this. Pero eventually, go into identifying a plan of action or application, which is the SE part of the RISE program naman, and the designing and destiny part of appreciative feedback. Now, we can recommend para she gets to a point that is really a win situation for everyone that's aligned to the hospital goals, also a division mission, ganyan. We want to suggest considering alternative proposals, designs, topics, even. Pero ultimately, the decision will have to come from her. So we included lang parts of the RISE model na. So we want her to reflect on her motivation, siguro as guides to how to engage her. So reflect on her motivation, inquire if this is what she wanted to work on, maybe consider whether or not this is something done already, or maybe, pero it really has to be emphasized that the institution respects the mother and baby's relationship, and we cannot randomly assigning them, even if they have the capacity, might go against the efforts, the vision, the goals of the hospital. So we suggest a different design method, topic to work on, reconstruct the problem, consult with the advisor, the colleague or an advisor, and then recommend based on what had been collaborated on. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Louie. You did a very comprehensive job in so short a time, no, in 20 minutes, no. But I'm really happy that you were able to see the value of focusing on the vision and the mission of the organization. Naipaghiwalay nyo, no, yung issue ng estudyante, baka kasi siya mismo hindi niya nakita, di ba? So maganda yung very comprehensive yung consultation among the consultants themselves, and then yung siguro yung guiding the student after that so that he or she would know what to do, enlightened na siya on what to do and how to revise the proposal. Okay? I also love that you were able to combine three models in one scenario. And I would like to pick up what I heard from one of the how do you call this? One of the participants in my room kanina na meron pala talagang principle, hindi lang yung kasi ito lang yung ito yung nakasanayan na there's a principle behind. And you know, these principles are the models behind what we do could somehow give us the confidence as the giver of the feedback na meron akong sinusunod. Like yung for example, yung debriefing, yung pearls, alam mo, sinusunod mo, ito yun ito yung tanong, ito dapat yung expect kong sagot. Diba? So it's good to be guided by these models. Hindi lang wido-wido na, diba? Okay, thank you, Louie. Next, that's Dot's group, no? Okay, we have a volunteer, si Ma'am Susan nga ba? Ma'am Celia. Okay, go ahead po, Celia. Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Dr. Celia Uitapos. I'll represent our group. No, we were sorry, I wasn't I wasn't able to get a screen cap of the specific scenario, but I'll just summarize it. So Paolo, no, a third-year pediatrics resident, no, he gets into an argument with the parents of a toddler being treated in the hospital for pneumonia. No, so malapit na silang ma-discharge, if I remember correctly. So the argument is about vaccination. No? So he gets into this argument because he's trying to convince them to vaccinate their child, but the parents don't believe in vaccination. No? So this is brought up to us, no, as this residence training officer. So what do you do? Tama ba? Tama ba yung pagkakaalala ko?
Yeah. Your group, anong group nga po kayo?
2, scenario 2.
Okay. The one with Mike. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Sir Mike. Okay. So medyo took us a while, no, to get into a discussion, but we talked about how we would process, no, itong resident, and the proposed model to give feedback was in Gibbs reflective cycle. So I just listed here from your presentation, know what that entails. No, so describe. No, ask the resident, ask Paolo to describe the incident or the experience. Number 2, express yung feelings and thoughts niya about the experience. Number 3, evaluate. No, evaluate the good and the bad parts of this incident and analyze, and then come to a conclusion about what he learned, and what could have been done differently, and come up with an action plan. So we didn't really go through this step by step. No, medyo freewheeling naman yung discussion. But my suggestion was that maybe we would need to, if it were me, no, parang delay feedback for a few hours, or I'm not sure about the time, to allow for high emotions to simmer down, and then sit down, no, one-on-one with Paolo. Of course, hear his side of the story, and then other group members suggested these open-ended questions, talking to Paolo, and ask him to express his feelings about the incident. My suggestion also was to ask him to write down, no, later on his reflections, to better process this incident. And then also take time-bound actions. No, kasi this is potentially patient complaint, no, incident. So parang
yes.
Yes, so kailangan be accountable, no, and responsible for your actions. And then I would advise him to apologize to the parents for getting into the argument, no. So it might be basically imposing beliefs on patients. Other group members suggested that Paolo be more professional and more sympathetic. No? And then maybe one other thing that can be done is to go back to this family, no, and together with a consultant, no, somebody more senior to model siguro how to better approach this kind of situation. So yun. No, and then just a few comments that came up during the discussion. No, we also want Paolo, no, to consider that he has to be a better listener. There was a comment about about healthcare professionals being more knowledgeable, no, so that we are in a position to educate. Pero also there needs to be caution during interactions with patients, kasi we don't want them to feel na they can't exercise their own autonomy, no, or that they'll feel unsafe. Yun yung mga nag-come up during the discussion.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No. Okay, so you chose Gibbs cycle. Tama, no? Okay, Gibbs reflective cycle. Yeah, I think this model is very applicable to this particular scenario, no? And I would like just to add something doon sa the importance of the action plan. You should not end any session on feedback, giving or receiving feedback without any action plan, no? At yeah, maganda naman na articulate niya that there should be some kind of a follow-up, whatever. Pero for me, doon kasi sa scenario na hindi nabanggit, no? Meron doon na, ako for one, nakita ko yung, kunyari, I could say na, alam mo, Paolo, I'm happy that you're very passionate, no, with what you do. Imagine, nilabas niya yung article about the benefits of vaccination. Then, binasa niya, no, dun sa harapan ng mga magulang. For me, that's a good, that's a good point. He's very passionate about what he does, no, or what he does or his profession. However, dun sa the parents insisted kasi that they don't agree on vaccination. Now, it got to a point when the residents started arguing with the parents and saying, kaya wala kayong pakialam kasi wala naman kayong binabayaran sa ospital. Parang ganon.
I'm sorry, I forgot to. I forgot.
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. So, if I were the training officer, oops, teka muna. Parang red flag to. Saan nanggagaling? Parang ganun kasi. Saan nanggagaling reaction? It could be something deeper na may nakatrigger ba dito? And I think this reflective cycle of Gibbs is very helpful para ma-surface yung ganun. Yung ganung reaction. Kasi nga sabi niyo po kanina na it's parang nag-iimbita ka ng complaint dito sa pasyente. If that temper, alam mo yon, unconsciously or, biglang lumalabas yung ganong temper. So hopefully through this cycle, no? Yes? Hello? Ayun, makita yung mga ganon and then ma-address ka agad siya doon sa action plan. Okay? Thank you so much for that group. Yes. And then we have from the group of Nina, Josephine. Group E. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. So I will just read the scenario. So physical diagnosis, course teaching, history taking, and physical examination skills usually begins with didactics. So live recorded or curated videos explaining and demonstrating how they are done. The next session is usually a formative return demonstration on a mannequin or a live simulated patient. So it's a patient actor of a specific skill. Example, history taking in a patient who complains of chest pain, abdominal pain, back pain, or a pregnant patient during the first or third trimester prenatal visit. Physical exam of the heart and lungs, pregnant abdomen. The student was asked to explain the steps he is about to do individually. you notice that the student missed some important and crucial parts of the process that can sacrifice the learning outcomes intended for the course. As a preceptor, how would you give a feedback? So, ma'am, yung sa amin po is a consensus of the group is that we cannot just work on one strategy. Kasi nga, we said that yung kasi mga strategies, some specific strategies are specific. For example, depende sa scenario, depende sa estudyante. So, dito sa amin, parang nag-agree kami na mix ito. So, kasi nga simulated, so dapat so we have the pearls. So we can also have yung kasi Pendleton kasi 'di ba yung steps niya. And then nandun din yung appreciative kasi doon sa pearls kasama yun doon when you do the evaluation. And then meron din doong sandwich kasi when you try to explain the procedure. So hindi siya talaga, and when we were discussing talagang sasama-sama siya at one point. Like I said, it depends on the student and it depends on the scenario na ginagawa ninyo. So for this, sabi nga namin, maganda kasi initially it was pearls kasi nga simulated. So if first before the student does the activity, di ba, meron tayong debriefing. So that's part of it. So ganoon din naman kami when din sila, you have the debriefing. So pag nakita mo na itong ginagawa ng estudyante, so after, so ang katulad dun sa Pearl, so you ask them first, so you set the scenario. So kasama kasi dun sa pagsiset ng scenario, ano ba yung purpose? So again, you explain ano ba yung purpose. So before you give the feedback, you give the purpose, explain the purpose of the activity. Ano ba yung outcomes na kailangan mong makuha from this activity? So tapos pag na-discuss mo na yon, then so ask para tayo magkakaroon ng so nag-setting tayo, nag-setting muna tayo ng ating activity, and then so we explore, sabi natin how do you think kasi usually how do you think you did or you performed during the activity. So syempre magsasalita ng estudyante, so sabihin niya, then you can also pick up things na baka hindi mo nakita by observing, alam niyo ma'am. So it also gives them the chance to say. So and then in the process, so andun yung, so actually sabihin mo, okay, kasi sabi namin may sandwich. Kasi sabihin mo, okay, you did well naman, nagawa mo ito, ganyan. And you did it the right way and accurately as expected, ganyan. And then, sa palagay mo ba, do you think you missed or do you think you missed on some points na expected if we base it on the outcomes that's expected or of you? Siyempre, yung skills na kailangan mo ipakita, do you think you missed out on something? So, parang may self-reflection ng estudyante instead of just pointing out na, oy, nagkamali ka, nakalimutan mo, which could be very traumatic for the student. So, sabi nga namin, pag gumagawa ka kasi ng feedback, you try to create a positive atmosphere. Para yung estudyante doesn't take it negatively. Yung feedback becomes, ganun lagi sasabi, we have to make it a constructive one. So they look at it as something to improve themselves. Ganon. And at the same time, baka it also teaches the student. So pag nireflect mo, ano ba yung na-miss mo? Okay, so sige. So na-miss mo ito, ganito. Why do you think na-miss mo yan? Bakit na-miss mo, hindi mo ba? Kasi sabihin niya, baka ninenervyos kasi di ba minsan sabi mo nga dun sa sinabi mo kanina, sometimes yung estudyante, lalo na pag una, sabi nga yung ikaw yung ally. So ikaw yung, di ba ma'am? So, gusto yung ganun na. Kaya nga sabi nga, di ba usually create a positive atmosphere. Minsan nagloloko ka, sino yung ally, di ba? Yung una. Kasi it usually gives a very uncomfortable feeling. Kahit alam. So sasabihin din sa'yo ng estudyante, ma'am, alam ko naman yun, nakalimutan ko, so ninenervyos lang ako. So you also know how to set the tone the next time you have it. And then you know also how to set the tone of the next, so sabi mo, okay, so yung constructive, so kaya sabi namin papasok yung parang sandwich, so tama naman yung ginawa mo, nakalimutan mo ito. So sa palagay mo, how could you have avoided this? So parang hindi po nanggagaling sa'yo lahat, sa kanya din nanggagaling yung points, hindi lang sabihin na, ay si ma'am sinabi sa akin lahat, mali. So sa kanya din nanggaling, okay, so how could you have improved? So then you make the recommendations. So you may recommendations ka, parang yun yung debriefing mo eh. So you make a recommendation on how it could be improved, but at the same time keeping a positive note na you will do better the next time kasi naalala mo na itong mga gagawin mo. So yun po.
Yes, thank you. Galing, no? Yes, and there are 2 points. The 2 points that I would like to to give emphasis to. Number one is, when we give feedback, let's not forget that there are objectives. May goals tayo, kaya tayo nagbibigay ng feedback. So, laging yun yung barometer natin. Parang laging yun yung batayan natin. Kaya ako sinasabi to, kasi di ba bago ka pumunta dun sa next na course, dapat ito alam mo na. Itong competencies na to, itong skills na to. So, if I were the student, I would understand na yung feedback mo, hindi lang nanggagaling from nowhere. Alam ko na merong basihan, merong kang pinanghuhugutan. No? So, let's always bear that in mind. And maganda na, sabi nyo nga, right from the beginning, explain mo, ano bang objective natin, ba tayo nag-uusap? Hindi kita para pagalitan or ibigay sa'yo kung ano, pero tingnan natin saan ka pa mag-improve. Okay? And then the second point that I'd like to emphasize is, allow the students or the person na binibigyan mo ng feedback, the room to make sense of his or her own experience or learning. Maganda na, ito dapat ginawa, galing sa teacher, di ba? Or sa consultant or sa training officer. But it would be good that it comes from them, because in the process of making sense of their own experience, they come to own. Yon. They come to own na siya mismo natutunan niya, di ba? Okay. Thank you so much for that very good presentation. And then the use of the several models all together. Okay? And then I think there's one more group na hindi nakakapag-present. The last group, NEMS group, meron ba? Yung scenarios.
Yeah, Group C was not able to have a faculty facilitator. So, we waited for 20 minutes there. Nobody arrived.
Oh, sorry po. Naku.
Yeah. We informed Claire about it, and we also informed the host, but wala. We just waited and we just went back to the room.
Sorry po. This is Group C. Nandun ako sa G. Hindi ako makapasok sa ibang group. Doon ako na pinadala sa G.
Okay, dun siya naitapon. Actually po, we're really sorry for the technical glitch. It should be NEM, who should be facilitating your group. But it's okay po, it's okay. So we only have 6 scenarios or 6 groups, So I'm sure we have also learned from each other's presentation, And then at this point, I would like to read the comment here from Jenaline. Sabi niya, there are so many feedback models, especially we can utilize nowadays because of the emerging models of learning, etc. For sure, those who attended this webinar can construct or implement a unique one. That's right. Unique one to all or each. Stay great po. God bless. Yeah. Actually, naiisip ko lang kanina while you were presenting, kung kayo ay nasa klase ko, nakapag-develop na kayo ng sarili nyong model. Which, eclectic, you can put all of this with whatever model is applicable to your particular context. Meron na kayo na-develop, yung ni-report ninyo, if you would like to sit down together as a team or as a group, and then isulat ninyo, gawin ninyo, you can have your own, model already of how to give feedback. So maganda, meron tayong sariling unique, way of doing things, but it would be good that it's backed up by tested models or principles or theory, so that we know that we'll never miss a very crucial part of the whole process. Okay? So are there other things that you would like to, to share, insights from the workshop or from the inputs?
Ma'am Ems, would you like me to read a comment from the YouTube? From the live stream?
Okay. Yeah.
Sige po. Then they're thanking you in the YouTube they found the tips very helpful, and then they are also informative. Sabi ni isang estudyante natin, si Edgardo, feedback needs to be planned and also anticipate possible responses, reactions our students may have. From Alvina, sabi niya, mahirap pagbigay ng feedback sa bagong henerasyon. Parang laging may mental health issues looming sa background. Meron kami sa grupo namin, she actually asked the question, hindi ko alam kung gusto niya mag-ask directly, but paano daw po ba magbigay ng feedback doon sa merong anxiety or merong ganung mental health issue?
Okay. Oo. I think that's a common concern, not only among our undergrad even sa grad school, lalo ngayon, no, pinag-uusapan na talaga yan. Ang sinasabi ko sa mentoring class ko is that, of course, yung initial ba, para lang meron silang makausap. So we give them feedback, this is what happens. Pero, kailangan in place din yung ating referral system. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman kasi lahat kaya natin. Lalo na pag kailangan ng professional help. I would like to pick up yung kay, sino ba yon? Yung si Paolo ba yon? Yung nagsabi na biglang uminit ang ulo. Sabi niya, kaya wala kayong pakialam kasi wala kayong binabayaran sa ospital. Parang may naka-trigger. Kaya yun, kailangan i-note natin. Now, if we, the consultants or the teachers, cannot, handle these issues, dapat alam na natin ngayon kung kanino siyang opisina or kanino siyang tao na pwedeng i-refer. Kasi baka yung feedback natin, lalo kung hindi talaga natin magets kung saan nanggagaling yon, baka imbes na makatulong, makasama pa dun sa ating learner or dun sa ating estudyante. Now, but I would like to emphasize, if you notice, dun sa presentation ko, lagi kong iginigiit, sinisingit yung tayo din dapat marunong magbigay at tumanggap. Kasi kung marunong tayong tumanggap, mas, I don't know sorry kung I'm speaking from my experience. Pag marunong kasi tayong tumanggap, mas nagkakaroon tayo ng humility to put ourselves in their shoes. Kaya yung tanong ko kanina na, have you ever asked yourself, anong pakiramdam ko kaya kapag ganito yung gagawin ko sa kanya, ganito isusulat ko, ganito yung sasabihin ko sa kanya, diba? So for all we know, baka minsan tayo yung dahilan kung bakit sila nagkakaroon ng mental health issues. Sorry to say, pero baka lang, hindi ko sinasabing yes, baka lang. Kasi tayo din may dala-dala Imagine, yung concerns natin, yung baggages natin, dadalhin natin sa classroom, tapos biglang mali yung procedure, edi boom! Boom! Diba? Mainit na ang ulo mo galing ng bahay, dala-dala mo sa school or dun sa procedure, tas yan. I hope you get what I mean. No, sa tayo din, kailangan natin. Ngayon paano? Tayo din, maghanap tayo. Yung feedback-seeking behavior, yung sinasabi ko kanina, that's really very helpful. No? Kapag kunyari dumating na yung season na, may result na ang set. No? Ako, ang description ko nga, kahit hating gabi pa pag sinena ni din yung result ng set namin, talagang balikwas ako sa kama kasi I want to know. Not because gusto kong namnamin yung sama ng loob, baka may negative doon or whatever, but I want to learn more. Yun yung gusto ko sanang ma-develop natin among ourselves and with our students. The feedback-seeking behavior, that they're comfortable because they know that it is for growth. No, it's for their learning. It's a learning of opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Ito naman po from Sheila. Sabi niya dito, I quote, I see that giving feedback is a hard task. First, I think, naiintindihan kaya ako ng student? My second thought is, na-send ko ba yung message ko properly to the student? But then, I can't find any evidence of learning from the student. Then again, I ask, ako ba may kulang?
Oh, magandang reflection yan Pag inilagay mo yon dun sa Gibbs cycle, lalabas talaga yon. But I really love the last question. Ako ba ang may kulang? Not because you feel so inefficient or what, but for me, that question means that there is a room for improvement. Na expert ka na, alam mo ng ins and out ng tinuturo mo, kaya nga nakapikit ka, kaya mong mag-cut ganon. Pero alam mo na there is a room for improvement. On the first place, sabi niyo nga nanggaling sa inyo. Pero I also don't want you to dwell on that judgment. Kasi mga bata ngayon, mga ganyan. Magandang i-consider yon, but don't dwell on that also. Kasi minsan nakaka-impede yun nakakahinder yon para magbigay tayo ng objective feedback. Kasi bago pa sila lumapit sa atin, may judgment na tayo. Ito na naman itong mga millennial na to, mga millennial trainees na ito. Alam mo yun actually yung last scenario na kayo mga millennial, kayo nung kami. Diba? Mas sigawan kami ng consultant, okay lang kayo. Yung ganyan. So maganda yon na una, effective kaya, naiintindihan kaya yung sinabi ko. You know kung anong gauge ninyo doon if there's a change in behavior and performance. Ibig sabihin, may nangyari. And yung nangyari na yon is an affirmation for you. Wow, wow, Ems, you're doing a great job. Ems, you're on the right track. Sige lang, gawin mo yan. Mag-feedback ka. Diba? Yon. Okay?
Ems, Gian is raising her hand. Siya po yung from the group. Gian?
Yes, Gian.
Question directly.
Yes po, hello po. Good afternoon. This is just in line po on the question about the depression po and anxiety. Because this is not only to the students but also to the colleagues. So a while ago, na-mention po kasi is that of course, for us to be ready to perceive the feedback and so as well. But how about for those that, because we have students or co-staffs, that what happens is that they use already this mental health disability as a blockage on receiving feedback. And then whenever we try to give feedback, what they say agad is that ang initial na lang na facility niya is ang go-go-go ko kasi. Now, do we stop giving the feedback and give it a referral and wait for clearance? So what are the steps to do this? Because it's very hard to give a constructive feedback, having in mind that anything that you say might, make the patient more or the kid more anxiety or depression.
Yeah, okay. My first answer to that is yes, perhaps it's a signal or it's a sign that yes, maybe someone more, how do you call this, or as an expert in that particular field would be able to talk to him or to her. Second is, it's sometimes helpful that the issue or the problem can be resolved by someone who is out of the scenario, out of the picture, or out of the, how do you call this, the area of concern. Kasi mas objective, di ba? Minsan kasi, di ba, sa atin din, sa daily dealings natin with other people, if we hear the same message, the same concern from the same person, yung sinasabi ko may biases, ako, ito na naman, paulit-ulit na naman, sinabi na nga, so sarado na. There's no more room for improvement. So sometimes, it's better, no, to consult someone else who could help in that particular situation. It's not giving up on the person, or it's not giving up on the student, but at least someone who could help better. Diba? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sige.
Are there other questions?
Kuya Ricky can read the comments po dito sa Zoom chat before I continue with YT, with this on YouTube. Okay, Kuya Ricky, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Decolen, for the enlightening session. I'm sure that many of you have question in mind. You raise your virtual hand so that we can recognize you. Or you may type your questions at the chat box and we will read your questions.
Ricky, dun sa start pa lang kanina while I was, yung sa pre-recorded pa lang, may tanong na si Eileen. Na-screenshot ko yon. Sabi niya kasi, how do you give appropriate feedback in a very stressed and very busy environment and in life-threatening situations when the trainee make errors? Like for example, while resuscitating a patient or while operating on a patient and the trainee made a crucial error. Okay, ang keyword ko kasi dito is while. Siguro ha, doon papasok yung dapat alisto dito yung the doctor in charge or yung consultant or yung trainee na siguro not to give the feedback right at that particular moment but to address the more immediate concern. Kasi nga sabi niya while so resuscitating etc. no. So i-address muna yon, mas immediate yon. The feedback can come later. No? So kailangan, teka muna, ako na kaya ang dito, bahala muna dito. Huwag mo nang hayaan kasi nakikita mo nang mali di ba? Then the feedback can come later. That way, you were able to address immediately the concern and at the same time, you can address the feedback later after the procedure, no? When you are having your debriefing session. Okay? Yun. That's my answer. I don't know, no? If that makes sense. Okay. Are there other questions?
Meron pa sa YouTube questions?
Sige. Pwede ko yung basahin ulit yung mga nasa YouTube pa. Sabi, actually, puro magaganda yung mga sinabi nila dito, Ma'am Ems. So, parang ang dami, parang kukulangin tayo ng oras, pero let me just pick yung mga iba pa, no? Sabi dito, yung mahaba na lang. Sabi dito, from Phoebe, sabi niya, with my experiences, giving and receiving feedback gives a vital role when it comes and deals with communication. Giving and receiving information is the most important thing a communication needs, but we may pay attention all the time. Not all comments and suggestions are acceptable. Importantly, if it is unsolicited. Perhaps knowledgeable thinking and understanding is essential to avoid miscommunication, misinterpretation, may lead to misunderstanding. Not all who listen understands, but instead most of them are finding ways how to talk back. And not who talks gives information, but rather suggesting their opinion. Therefore, speak with our heart together with our mind so that no time is being wasted. Sabi ni Cindy. Ayan. So, whatever model we use, I think, sabi ni Tony Baldomero, whatever model we use, I think as long as we cover the criteria of an assessment tool, checklist, or rubric, we will be able to go a long way. This is because the foundation of the positive and negative feedback items that we offer the learner are based on predetermined elements of the outcome, performance, process in the assessment tool. So, sabi niya, mag-stick to dun sa tool. Ayan. Sabi dito, written feedback is probably most prone to misinterpretation daw, Ma'am M. Tama po ba?
Come again, sorry?
Written feedback is probably most prone to misinterpretation. Sabi niya.
Yes. Oo, actually yes, kasi nga una-una hindi mo nakikita yung reaction, 'di ba? And then there's no immediate reaction or a gesture that you can observe. So that's why ang challenge nga talaga doon is to be able to make it really descriptive para you do not send the wrong signal or the wrong message to the receiver. Yeah.
Pero ditong binanggit na parang paano mo daw po sila mapapabasa ng written feedback? I think it's Mads who posted that question. Sabi niya dito, there are times when students do not read written feedback. Can you recommend ways to encourage students to view it?
Okay. Again, communication. It also depends on how you write the feedback. Kunyari lang, di ba ang example ko kanina, good job, very good, perfect. Ganun, syempre, na yun, alam na nila, default yun di ba? Pero if you try to really address what they have written in their paper and then make your more intimate or more personal feedback, I think the students will have that interest to read your feedback. Hindi yung default answers or default feedback. Alam naman kasi nila yun di ba?
Okay. Pero daw po dito, problem we usually encounter in giving feedback is avoiding subjectivity, leading to biases of our feedback, and also the difficulty of avoiding the trap of comparing oneself to your students. Ayun, subjectivity naman po ang hinighlight niya din sa kanyang comment.
Oo, lahat naman it really comes kasi nga from your experience pero at the same time may basis ka, kaya nga lagi ko sinasabi ibalik niyo lagi sa goal, sa objective, ano bang learning objectives natin, and I think that removes the subjectivity. Pero syempre ang comment mo ay parang kulang yung discussion mo. Bakit kulang? Kasi yon, mas objective na siya, kasi ang goal natin ito yung learning objective natin, so lagi mo siyang ibabalik doon para maging objective, diba?
Meron pa po dito, giving an honest feedback, both positive and negative, is important in order that individual or receiver will grow or improve, and the center speaker should think of the best way to give the feedback. And it's also somewhat frustrating if the students were able to absorb what we want them to learn from us. We keep the communication open with our students. Yan sabi niya. Ayun. Ang dami pong comment dito, Ma'am Ems. Alam ko, 4:39 na, hindi ko alam kung ano yung cue as to how we will end this. Pero, ayan, at sasagutin na lang po namin yung mga comments nyo, no? And dito naman po yan sa YouTube. Okay, so I turn back the floor. I give the floor to Kuya Del. Teko na po.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Okay, now we would like to award the certificate of appreciation to our speaker. Yeah, the National Teachers Training Center for the Health Professions, University of the Philippines, and Dr. Paulino Gonzalez Memorial Foundation Incorporation, present this certificate of appreciation to Emily D. Dicolen for her invaluable contribution as a speaker during the online monthly seminar on giving feedback given on September 26, 2022. Signed by our Professor and Dean, Melflor A. Atienza, and the President of CPG-MFF, Erlene A. Sana.
Thank you.
Okay, pwede po mag-picture taking, kung mag-photo op po tayo for our picture taking. Alvin, pwedeng ready for our picture taking. Alvin?
Sige, pwedeng ako na lang kasi nagla-stream si Alvin, no? So,
okay.
Refrain from sending comments kasi mawawala po yung mukha nung matatakpan ng comments natin, no? Sige. So, open your videos. Ayan, I'll be taking the first shot. Smile, everyone. Teka lang nakalagay dito 5 people are in the waiting room. So, natakpan yung nandun sa ibabaw. Wait lang po. Exit ko lang po ito. Another one. Smile po. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, that's the first frame. 4 po ito dahil marami po tayo ngayon sa Zoom. Wait lang po Let me just save this first. Okay, second frame. Smile. Yan. Kasi hindi po natin alam kung nasan kayong frame, no? Ayan, sige. Wait lang po. That's the second frame. So, let me have the third frame. Smile po. Do not forget to answer the client satisfaction survey after this po para po makakuha kayo ng certificate. Yan, kumulog po dito sa amin. Ayan, I'm done with the fourth frame. Okay na po.
Okay.
Means, konting singit lang, 1 sentence lang. I just would like to say thank you to my students who helped me with the scenarios. Thank you. I think some of you are here. So maraming salamat.
Mabuhay mga estudyante.
Okay, we would like to remind everybody that continuing professional development units will be given for the various professions. Requirements will include registration to this seminar and joining us either through Zoom or YouTube live stream and filling out of the self-assessment and client satisfaction survey. Please fill out the client satisfaction survey. It has a short and easy questions for you to answer. Claire shared this link through chat, and this will also help us to improve our services. Then our next monthly seminar will be on November 28th. Assessing the primary care health professions educator. And that. Okay, our next monthly seminar will be on November 28th, 2022. And we hope to see you there. This ends our monthly seminar for September. See you in 2 months. Thank you po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Salamat po.
Kita-kita po ulit. Huwag niyo po kalimutan yung client satisfaction survey.
Thank you po.
Dotsky. Sama ka bukas sa klase ko? Nakamute ka.
What's tomorrow? Ay, yung convention, yung conference mo. Anong
Hindi
oras?
conference, hindi klase yun. Yung social and emotional skills, implications to leadership.
Anong oras na yan?
2 o'clock.
Di ba na bukas? Inter-university workshop?
University na bukas.
Oo, pero hindi nga, oo. Tama, sige, hindi ka pwede. Pero ako, di ba, nagsabi ako sa'yo, I will be there.